Final weekend of the Formula Renault 3.5 series. It's the last World Series by Renault meeting, and we are watching as the cars and the drivers make their final preparations for the start of race one. Martin Haven, Tom Gaymore alongside me, and not a difficult set of maths to work out. Our championship leader, Carlos Sainz, with a 44-point advantage. There are 50 points on offer. It is win or bust for Roberto Merhi, his only remaining challenger. So we could have a Spanish champion crowned here in Andalusia today, the penultimate race weekend, penultimate race day rather of the season. We'll take a very quick pause, possibly, and wait for something exciting to happen. Well, that could have gone better. We were anticipating having some exciting bits and pieces there. So let's just ignore our running order and throw that away, and we'll get to the action. Final race weekend then of 9 for the World Series by Renault. For Formula Renault 3.5, of course, they had their standalone event in Monaco as well. But everybody joined together at Jerez, down in the south of Spain, Andalusia. And the city name Jerez de la Frontera harks back to the Dark Ages, the early 12th century, when Spain was divided into Christian and Moorish parts. The Moors from North Africa had the southern part of Spain, and the frontier was around the area of Jerez. And the name of the city and of the wine that comes from this region, sherry, both come from Jerez, which is the Moorish name for the town. Carlos Sainz, our championship leader, 44 points clear of Roberto Merhi. Just as well that he has got a big advantage. Sainz had a bit of a qualifying nightmare, Tom, only 15th on the grid. But Merhi's only 10th on the grid. He's got to win both races. Yeah, poor Carlos Sainz Jr. having a bit of a nightmare from when he sat down at dinner last night through to, well, this morning, because food poisoning stricken him, and that is challenging because it's hot here in Jerez, and obviously didn't get the best out of the new tyres. Car wasn't at its best, and Carlos Sainz Jr. not at his best physically either. But Roberto Merhi not really able to capitalise. I mean, Roberto Merhi did a much better job than he did yesterday, but it wasn't enough. And fitting to see Gasly on screen, because really for me it's not so much can Merhi challenge Carlos Sainz Jr., but can Pierre Gasly catch Merhi? There's 11 points between the pair of them, and so that fight for second and third much closer than the fight for first and second. It certainly is. Well, down there on the sunshine in the grid is our pit reporter Neil Cole. We'll catch up with him very shortly. Going to try and catch up as well with our poleman Will Stevens, who, after being right at the front of the field at the early part of the season with a win in the first race, has had a little bit of a nightmare, but he is on pole. Qualifying didn't really go our way, but we knew the time was in there because I made a small mistake. So we were confident in the car this weekend. We've actually made a few changes for here, which I think we may have finally come across what's been holding us back all year, which is obviously good because we're on pole here, but it's disappointing because it's come so late in the year. But obviously we're happy now to come here with a pole, and hopefully we can take it on to the win. And this is a circuit that you clearly like. Yeah, I mean, it's a great circuit. Obviously, it's nice to come here. We haven't come in the last few years in World Series, so it's nice to have a bit of a different circuit. It's a bit more old school, very high grip, very high speed. So it's a track I love, and it's great to get a pole here. Jerez, formerly the home of the Spanish Grand Prix. It's also a MotoGP venue and used for Formula One testing, and it is a quick track. I mean, but there are plenty of corners as well, 13 turns. It is going to be a little difficult to overtake. Certainly, having not been here before, the drivers are going to have to adapt to that, because, Tom, in qualifying, you just concentrate on going on your own for the fastest lap you can possibly manage. Then you get to the start of race one, you suddenly realise, oh, I've got no idea where you can overtake here.
Yeah, it is a challenging place to overtake, so you've got to look at the track characteristics, but also let's look at how close qualifying is. I mean, the top 14, 15 separated by half a second, so together with the track characteristics, the close nature of the grid in terms of how well balanced all the cars are and how little the margin is between each driver means that it's even harder, if you like, to get that advantage and try and make something stick in the race. We don't have pit stops here today either. That's for tomorrow's race. That does add spice and strategy to the occasion. We don't have it today, so this man here will be looking for a good start, and then it's a short run down to turn one, and if he can get into turn one well, then he's got half the job done in my book. It's worth pointing out though, Martin, as well, the front three all British drivers, so very good performance from 3 British drivers and 3 British teams.
It's great to see you here in Jerez. And the fact that the title still isn't decided must please you, that there's still suspense in the championship.
Of course, it's always good to have the champion in the last day or last 2 days. Maybe we'll have him in a few minutes, but it's good suspense, yes.
And of course, this is the end of the 10th season of World Series by Renault. Talk us through how it's evolved in that decade.
Well, in 10 years, we've had more than 5.5 million spectators. 17 drivers have gone to Formula One. You know that today 60% of the Formula One drivers have come through Formula Renault. We still have Jean Ragnotti. He was there 10 years ago, still here. And we're happy to have Alain Prost back with us as ambassador of Renault. He started his career in Formula Renault a few years ago. So I think it's a great event. We like it.
Merci, thank you. We'll talk to Alain Prost in a minute. Thank you.
Apologies for stepping over the top of Neil there. Unfortunately, we're not getting information from on-site TV truck to tell us when the interviews are coming up, so we're going to sort of busk it a little bit. We do have a running order. However, I'm not sure that Neil does have a minute by minute. Here's Ollie Rowland then, outside starter from the front row of the grid. And there is an opportunity here to have an all-British podium, which would be a big boost for Will, big for Ollie, and big for Will Buller, who lines up in third as well.
All 3 of those drivers want to win here more than anything. Will's had 1 win at the beginning of the season. He wants to go out in style. Ollie Rowland, he thought he could have had pole. He had to pass Jafar at the last corner. That cost him dearly. And Will Buller, well, it's been a difficult season for the Irishman, Northern Irishman, and he would love his first win in World Series by Renault. So let's see, it's a short run down to turn one, and who will get the jump once the lights go green?
Alain, it's great to see you here in Jerez, a circuit I'm sure you're very familiar with. Even more now because you've taken the RS01 out on this circuit. Tell us what it feels like, the new car.
It's really a great racing car, you know, and especially here in Jerez, where I know the track quite well, and you can realize the performance of the car, you know, and very good balance and aerodynamically at a very nice level, and it's very nice to drive. It's also a nice design, and outside, inside, it's a great looking car.
It looks amazing, and it sounds good on this circuit as well.
Yeah, it's very fun to drive. I was thinking yesterday, you know, this car is going to be developed for professional drivers, but also for gentleman drivers. So, I mean, you can push, you can have fun, you can change a lot of things inside the track. It's all a car, also very good for gentleman drivers because you can have a lot of fun. It's really quite a good compromise, but with a very high performance, you know, quicker than the GT3. So it's quite amazing.
And how important is it that a car manufacturer like Renault continues to innovate with sports cars like this?
I think it's essential, you know, for a big constructor like this. You know, they have been involved in motor racing for such a long time, but we are talking about motor racing, we are talking about obviously performance, but also design. What is important also, if you look at the RS01, it's the design is unbelievable, but it's also a sign of you know, all the new cars coming from the Lawrence Van Enneke, design office, and they are all looking about the same. So we can have a nice view of what we are going to have in the future at Renault. It's also performance, or almost a luxe, and that we can see on the new Espace, that we have been presented on the motor show. So it's very altogether it makes sense, to be with a car like this, and it can show all the people, all the crowd, that what Renault is able to do.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, ironically, Alain Prost never raced the original RS01, which of course was Renault's first ever Formula One car that brought turbocharging into the modern era with its V6 turbo engine. Named the Teapot, or nicknamed the Teapot by the British constructors because of its frequency of overheating. It very soon changed the way that Formula One became, and Formula One had him as a driver at Renault in RS03 and RS04s. So he gets to drive the new RS01. Well, Pietro Fantin on the grid, and all the drivers remembering Jules Bianchi, as everybody in motorsport is at the moment, hoping for good news from Japan for him. However, the good news here today in Jerez is that yesterday's foggy start was not repeated. It was very foggy yesterday. Cars were delayed, went out, came back in because the fog rolled back across again. And today it's a little bit more of a Jerez day. It's hot and it's sunny. As well as Alain Prost debuting the RS01, we have Sebastian Buemi on the grid.
Sebastian, it's good to see you here in Jerez. Tell us about Carlos Sainz. As a member of the Red Bull family, you must know him quite well.
Yeah, I know him quite well. He's a bit younger than me. I've been following his career since a long time, and what he has achieved is quite impressive. So hopefully we'll become champion today, starting from the back, but I'm sure he can recover, and then the next step is Formula One. So we'll cheer for him.
And it was nice to see you earlier in the Formula One car, looking good in endurance and Formula E. What's the plan for next year?
At the moment, I'm going to continue with Toyota, the main driver, obviously doing Formula E on the side and being the Red Bull reserve driver. So, looking forward to have a similar season next year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So just the three jobs then: Formula E, World Endurance with Toyota, and of course demoing Red Bull cars. Bit of panic going on here around Carlos Sainz's car. And he's, of course, in Red Bull colours, but black and yellow of the Dams team. Dams leading the championship for teams as well. And when you're faffing around with the steering wheel, what on earth are they tie wrapping onto the wheel? Have they had to change the wheel? They're not tie wrapping him into the car, I hope.
No, it doesn't look as though it's the steering wheel, but we'll have to look. There was a bit of panic around Pietro Fantin's car as well. Yep. Further up the grid, he's in 4th place, but the Draco Racing squad looked as though they were fiddling around the steering wheel as well. Carlos Sainz looked as cool, calm, and as collective as ever.
Holding it in, I should think, after yesterday. Well, Will Stevens, the man on pole position, and he and Sergei Sirotkin will be hoping to score big points here. Or Oliver Rowland, rather, and Sergei Sirotkin for Fortec will be hoping to score big points to try and overhaul Dams. There's Jean-Paul Driot offering final words of encouragement to Sainz. You could see the display is up on Sainz's steering wheel, shows it's in neutral, so he's got power there, which hopefully means that he's got flappy paddle gearboxes and everything else. But I can only imagine they were tie wrapping the little coiled, wire bits and bobs underneath the steering column. They're certainly not tie wrapping the column.
There's no wires. It's a plug on the column. So it looked to me as though they were fiddling around with something to do with the leg supports that fit inside the inner roll bar. So the steering wheel looked fairly undisturbed, but we'll have to wait and see. It is all solved now, and Roberto Meri's just got one view, hasn't he? And that's just going forward. He kind of elaborated to that there. Someone not on the grid here. Yeah,
so 4th on the grid, Pietro Fantin has been pushed. And was there a gap behind him as well where Sirotkin should have been? So Fantin has been pushed off the grid, which will leave a gap open in front of Marlon Stockinger. So yeah, there was a drama. And the problem, of course, Tom, is that so many of these things are highly complex electronically. There is a gap there. That's 7th. So that's in front of Gasly. So there's no no, there is Sirotkin. No, it's just a big gap because the camera's a little closer. Having a bit of an unnecessary panic. Positioning Ollie Rowland where he needs to be.
Well, they're rolling backwards, so he'll be able to light the rear tyres on the formation lap. And what that means when you roll backwards is if you think where the rear tyres are, when he lines back up for the start, his tyres will be on a clean bit of track and some rubber that's been freshly laid down.
A little look there at Mathieu Vazivière. He was fastest in free practice. Couldn't repeat it in qualifying though. They had two test sessions yesterday because of course this is a new circuit for all the drivers. Or at least it is for World Series by Renault. First ever visit to Jerez World Series by Renault. Traditionally the season finale has been at Montmeló at the Circuit de Catalunya outside Barcelona. And of course we have often started in Motorland Aragon. So this is still the second visit. Went to Aragon after Monza this year and finish up here in Jerez. So the green flag waves at the front of the grid.
At the heart of the World Series by Renault with Elf.
Cars on the final formation lap here at Jerez de la Frontera, and they are led around by Will Stevens, the Straka Racing driver, ahead of fellow Brits Ollie Rowland and Will Buller. Pietro Fantin lining up in the pit lane rather than fourth on the grid. Second in the championship, 10th on the grid, Roberto Meri, chasing Carlos Sainz, who qualified an unwell 15th position. That may well be his worst qualifying run of the season. 21 cars starting here. 2006 championship winning team Contec are not here. Esteban Ocon doing the season finale in the Formula 3 European Series at Hockenheim. So here we go, ready for the first race. Safety car joins the tail of the grid. The green flag will wave. We are ready to go. 20 cars on the grid, one in the pit lane for the first race here in Jerez for World Series by Renault. And away we go. Will Stevens on the left. The poleman gets a good getaway. So does Ollie Rowland. Shocking start though for Will Buller in third. He's passed around the outside by Sergei Sorokin for fifth on the grid. Buller is out with Roberto Meri. Championship is over.
So Meri made a great start, was on the outside. Buller, I didn't see the contact, but got turned around. And would you believe it, Meri on the outside, just harpooned by Will Buller. And look, Meri having a go at Buller there, but well, let's just see what happened to Will. But Meri definitely the innocent victim, and well, that's the championship over already.
Carlos Sainz is the champion. He has a 44-point lead. The only way Roberto Meri could have caught him and passed him would be to win both races. Massive lock-up from the Lotus.
He's got a problem.
Yes, he has. Looks like he's got a puncture, Marlon Stockinger. And he's been passed by Mathieu Vazivière. It's the right front, isn't it? And if Rowland Will Buller got turned around from the left rear, you would have to assume that might have come from Stockinger. Stockinger started 6th on the grid. So he would have had Will Buller on his right, and Roberto Meri could do nothing about that. Sometimes that is just the way it works. And Carlos Sainz now will probably feel fairly wretched during the race, but he will be our champion. Well, Ollie Rowland then in second place. There's the leader, Will Stevens, right in front of us. So one corner in, the championship decided. Now we've got 2 races that everybody can go on and win. Third place, Sergei Sorokin. Fourth is Vazivière. Fifth is Bijtske-Visser ahead of Pierre Gasly. So Bijtske-Visser from 11th on the grid, 12th on the grid, beg your pardon, has made a stunning start. The Dutch girl up into 5th position.
Great start from Visser, and the Dams crew are starting to celebrate because they know that they are, well, Carlos Sainz Jr. is the 2014 World Series by Renault champion.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they've seen on the monitors.
And the implications now, as I was saying before the race, that puts, if Pierre Gasly can get will make further headroads, and we look at Carlos Sainz Jr. further back.
Yep.
He can pass Roberto Meri if he makes headroads now.
Well, Sainz eased Latifi out of the way. There's Vaziviere, and who went by Latifi as well. The second car behind was Sorensen in the Tech 1 car. There's Stockinger, sorry, Vaziviere is still on track. Stockinger, I think, may have been the man who turned Will Bull around, and Roberto Meri, well, not much he could do about that, I'm afraid. Sometimes you are just the innocent victim.
He made a great start.
Tom.
He made a great start. Look on the right-hand side, four rows back. Meri is flying, and then Will Buller is going very slowly.
Cars. One of them is going to hit Buller.
Well, Buller's just come across.
Buller moved across into Stockinger. I'm afraid he was the architect of his own downfall there.
Well, I have to say that's pretty poor from the Northern Irishman. He's had a poor season, and he's just come across on Stockinger there. I don't quite know what he was doing. It was clumsy. And Roberto Meri's championship is over because of it. And the frustrating thing for Meri is he got such a good start.
Did what he needed to do, didn't he? On board with Sainz.
Now he made a real
Sainz. Latifi made a good start as well up the middle. And Sainz going inside. He sees it all happening on the outside. Ooh, had a little bit of contact with Oscar Tunja, yeah.
And more contact.
Oh,
wow.
Dear. Just as well that... yeah, I mean, you know, when things are going your way, they're going your way. 2 hits in the first 3 corners.
Yeah,
that's remarkable.
Carlos Sainz Jr. with a very cautious approach through the first 2 corners. Not.
Well, he was trying to be cautious, wasn't he? Went to the inside. It's all happening in front.
I tell you what, the more I see that, Will Buller, that was poor at this level. You know, that was Formula Ford style stuff, and Roberto Meri, understandably, really, really frustrated. But I have to say, Carlos Sainz Jr., as you said, when Lady Luck's on your side, he had 2 big moments in those first 2 corners. Could have lost his front wing at turn 1, and then turn 2, I've seen steering arms break with that amount of contact before.
Absolutely. Or wings come off, or punctures, none of which appear to have happened to him. I mean, he might have an out of alignment steering column or something, or steering rack, but he seems to be going at the moment and picking up places. Will Stevens and Ollie Rowland a win apiece. Will Stevens the winner of our first race of the season in Monza, and Ollie Rowland won race 2, didn't he, in Aragon. So for Stevens it would be bookending the season, and for Ollie Rowland, well, a chance to win a 2nd race in Spain. Pietro Fantin, starting from the pit lane, is circulating. Will Buller, Roberto Meri are out. Nicholas Latifi's been in the pits, and so has Marlon Stockinger. I think Stockinger has stopped. I think Latifi has stopped at Tech 1 as well. Mathieu Vaziviere up to 4th place. He made a good start. Now, definitely he was a bit Teflon coated through the first 3 corners, but there wasn't much Teflon spray left after the dam's mechanics had used it on Sainz's car. Whatever the panic was, clearly it wasn't that detrimental to Carlos Sainz's car, because he got away from the grid cleanly and somehow survived all the chaos behind him.
So let's capitalise then. Stevens, Rowland and Sirotkin, your top 3. We're on board with Gasly down in 6th place. He'll get 8 points for 6th place. He's 11 behind Roberto Meri, who will not score here in race 1. So that means there'll be 3 points if Pierre Gasly stays where he is now, between him and the Spaniard going into tomorrow's race. And that is going to be a hotly contested affair, because Pierre Gasly has the added incentive of the Scuderia Toro Rosso seat that will be made vacant as Daniel Kvyat goes to the senior team for 2015. Carlos Sainz Jr., Pierre Gasly and Alexander Lynn going for that seat. And so there is plenty to play for.
Unless Red Bull choose someone else, which isn't beyond the bounds of possibility.
It's not.
I know that sounds really tough, but you know.
Well, it's not, because with Verstappen coming in so young, there's already talk of having a more experienced teammate alongside him. So either way, these 3 young chargers that I've just listed will definitely feel they're in with a mega chance, and all they can do is their best now, and the rest will take care of itself. But it is an incentive, and they won't see it as pressure, they'll see it as an opportunity.
Let's hope so. Mathieu Vaziviere, as we watch him, circulating just ahead of Bijtskevissa. Bijtskevissa in the orange and white of Arjen Baer's team, the ABF Formula car. 5th place for the Dutch girl, ahead of Pierre Gasly. And Gasly, if he's hoping to bag himself a Formula 1 seat, probably needs to be doing some overtaking. I know it's early in the race, we've only had 4 laps so far, but I'm not sure that Helmut Marko will be mightily impressed if he finishes behind Bijtskevissa. With no disrespect to her, she's not been picked up by a talent program through her career.
She was a former Red Bull driver.
Wow, okay, in which case...
And then she was dropped.
In which case, if he doesn't get by a driver that they've dropped, that only leaves one place to go, doesn't it?
I'm 99% sure that she did Formula ADAC with Red Bull backing for 1 year, I think it was.
You may well be right.
But this is definitely her best showing in World Series by Renault around a very, very physical and fast Jerez circuit. This definitely separates those that fancy it and those that don't, and Bijtskevissa really up there and charging hard, and it's nice to see because she is a talented young driver and she's had a tough learning year, but it's coming good at the end, and that's what counts going into 2015. It's all about momentum, and when you're looking for money and sponsors, it just tempts those that have put their hand in their pocket for this year to go, well, listen, you know, she's shown potential, she might crack it in 2015, let's go again. And we hope to see her back in World Series by Renault.
It gives the opportunity, doesn't it, to, you know, when you end the season on a high, to go, you know, with something to shout about, and that's exactly what you need. Whoever you are, with whatever championship you're aiming to move into, you've got to have the results to show it. Pierre Gasly right behind her at the moment. Gasly in the number 7 Red Bull car. Just to remind you, although they're both sponsored by the same drinks company, they are in different teams, he and Carlos Sainz. Gasly at the moment in 6th and Sainz in 9th. In fact, the 2 Downs cars, 8th and 9th, not scoring particularly well. Ollie Rowland 2nd, Sergei Sorokin 3rd for Fortec. At the moment, the team's championship is closing up noticeably in the favour of Fortec. However, they really need the big 25-point haul for a win if they can.
And it's worth pointing out, this is as close as you can get around this element of the circuit. Pierre Gasly hanging on to the coattails of Bijtskevissa through this aero-dependent element of the circuit. The air comes off the back of Visser's car and effectively is disturbed over the front of Pierre Gasly's Arden machine, which means he loses grip. He has to work harder to stay as close as he is, and that will take its toll on these Michelin tyres. They will start to overheat with the track temperature growing. The sun is out here at Jerez, and it is blisteringly hot for this time of the year. We expect it to be warm in Spain, but in October, you don't normally see temperatures this warm. And that's got to take its toll on Carlos Sainz Jr. physically.
I wonder what the Spanish equivalent of an Indian summer is. We have an Indian summer in the UK when it's warm late in the year. There's the Arden team. One car in a gravel trap and the other one stuck behind Bijtskevissa in 6th position. On board again with Pierre Gasly. The gaps remaining pretty constant, and in fact I rather fancy that Visser is creeping just a little closer to Mathieu Vazivière in the Lotus in front, but she's then going to run into the same problem that Gasly has got now. If she gets in within a second of Vazivière, she'll be in the turbulent air, her wings won't work so well, her tyres will start to go off, and then she'll start to suffer as well. At the moment, she's got clean airflow, so her car probably feels as sharp as it has all race weekend.
Yes, and if Gasly gets a little bit closer, she will feel the need to defend as well. That brings problems of its own. You go offline, you make the tyres dirty, and also you compromise your entry and minimum and exit speed. So you tend to fall back even further into the clutches of the car that's chasing you. I think Vaxivière does have the pace on Visser at the moment. He's just eking out every lap a 10th or 2, and I really think Bijtskevissa got her focus on keeping ahead of Pierre Gasly rather than trying to close the gap on Vaxivière. I know that sounds strange, but track position, everything here at Jerez, and Bijtskevissa will find her rhythm and then hope that that Lotus of Vaxivière will come back to her later on in the race. You just don't know where they're at with their tyre pressures all set up, and it might just be that we look at the Arden crew, Julian Rouse on that pit wall as well. And yeah, everyone focused on this battle, the race director included. And Will Stevens now 1.2 seconds ahead of Ollie Rowland out front. That's not really changed. Stevens, they've just traded fastest laps over each other. The fastest lap of the race going to Pedro Fantin further back. He's obviously got a fresh set of tyres and the red mist down.
Interestingly, this pair last time round 132.7, 132.8, and the leaders doing 132.4 and 6. So fractionally slower than the leaders, despite the fact that Vaskivica is having to watch her mirrors a little bit. I have a feeling, though, that lap time is going to start to drop away. As Gasly attacks, she's going to have to get more defensive, and that means not using the ideal racing line. And that means losing speed as well. So in fact, their last lap, they're down in the 1:33, so getting on for a second slower than the leaders.
So Carlos Sainz under investigation, and it's not really going to hurt him because Mary, whatever happens now, cannot catch him. And well, he's driving round, he's circulating. He'll have one eye on that championship trophy because he knows deep down he's done all the work that needs to be done in 2014. He would like to wake up, feel better, and get a win to end the season. And that's what he'll be focusing on doing overnight and into tomorrow. But yeah.
Well, already 7 wins from 16 races, so you can hardly say he's lucked into it, can you? Yes, you have to have a little bit of good fortune that goes with you. Everything else is not enough. You have to have the luck that goes with it. I mean, look at the battle in Formula 1 between the Mercedes drivers. Chances are it'll be retirements that aren't driver caused and, you know, other people causing you mistakes that make the difference in who wins the Formula 1 World Championship. And that's often the case when you've got so closely matched rivals. And it took Roberto Meri just a little while to get into his stride compared to Sainz. But boy, you know, from midsummer onwards, when we went to Russia, Meri was right in there and has been hounding the champion all the way. But Sainz has been in the driving seat, really, and for most of the season, and has shown he's got plenty of class. But this incident they're going to investigate. Well, that one, what can you say? It's the first corner of a race. He ran into the back of him. Neither car was damaged. Both are still continuing.
It's here now that they'll investigate that move because...
Yeah, but then he was trying to avoid an incident with the car in front of him.
Yeah, I think he's just got sucked into the braking zone there and concentrating on just trying to get up the inside of Tunyo. And well, he's nerfed Tunyo off. I mean, Tunyo rejoined. He's down in 16th now. And that's what they'll be looking at, that turn 2 incident. I said, you know, Carlos Sainz will want to win tomorrow with will want to end tomorrow with a win, I should say. If he gets a grid penalty, it'll be very, very difficult, and that's the only thing that the Dams crew and Carlos Sainz Jr. will have to be wary of. But for me, it was a racing incident, but I'm sure Oscar Tunyo won't see it that way.
Well, if it was him on the inside, he might expect to have got a penalty. So the same ought to apply, irrespective of who's done what to whom, or who's doing the doing. Still with Pierre Gasly, see the front wing wobbling around in the turbulent air and in the vibrations from the circuit. This is a quick old track, Jerez, isn't it? You know, you look at some of the Formula 1 races here, very quick indeed, and pretty physical as well. Lots of high-speed corners. Will Stevens, our race leader, 10 laps in.
He's still pushing, is Will Stevens, wearing the Marussia badge on his helmet because from Suzuka onwards he's signed as their reserve driver, and what a difficult time it was for everyone involved in motorsport that Suzuka weekend. But for Will Stevens, a young driver involved in Formula 1 for the first time, I spoke to him before this weekend just to see where his mindset was, and without stating the obvious, it's a really, really tough time for the young drivers, especially those that were so close to the incident in Japan. And the Forza Jules logos all over the cars, and Jules Bianchi in the minds, as you said, Martin, of everyone in motorsport over this weekend.
Absolutely right. I mean, nobody expects to see drivers not leaving the track happily and successfully, and that's become, fortunately, a very, very rare occurrence in modern motorsport. The days when we were killing half the grid per season, or a third of the grid per season, are long gone, and very rightly so. But for Jules Bianchi and his family and friends and followers, it is a tough time. And I don't think there's anybody really in motorsport that doesn't know that these things can happen. We see Bice-Kevissa defending against Pierre Gasly. That puts her deep in the corner under braking. Gasly might have chosen a better place to try and get by. That was a one bite of the cherry. There was no plan B there. If he didn't get by, as he didn't, then he was left with trying to get all the long way around the outside.
Well, just using his DRS, these cars have 350 seconds worth of DRS, slightly different than the DRS that we see in Formula 1. It's a flap that effectively stalls the rear wing, but Gasly using it to good effect down into turn 6. And really the momentum was that once Bice-Kevissa had gone to the inside, Gasly had no choice but to go to the outside, and you're going to have to work hard to pass anyone around the outside, and Visser doing a good job not to outbrake herself. But this is what we're seeing now. Bice-Kevissa having to go defensive. That's going to hurt their pace, and she's going to drop back into the clutches of Pierre Gasly.
With Elf.
Battle for 5th place rages on. Bice-Kevissa under pressure from Pierre Gasly, the young Red Bull driver, in 6th spot, and being caught slowly but surely by Meindert van Buren in the first of the Pons racing cars. Of course, team owned by motorcycle legend Cito Pons, after whom turn 5 at this track is named. So as they come down into the centre chicane, 2 ways of coming around this corner. The motorcycles go all the way around. Cars, you go through the chicane as you hit up to turn 12. And then the final hairpin, which has been renamed after Jorge Lorenzo. This is a big MotoGP circuit, and of course Spain, with a lot of motorcycle racing heritage being celebrated here. Down into the first corner, the battle for 5th continues. Will Stevens is still leading, but the gap has come down. Tom Gamer in the last couple of laps. Ollie Rowland has brought it back down. It's now down to just 0.8 of a second, so we could be seeing a lively battle for the race lead as well soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ollie Rowland driving very well, and like I said, they've been trading tenths out of each other the whole race. Will Stevens looks as though he's got it in terms of the way he's managing the race. And as we've seen with this battle, or the battle we were watching between Visser and Gasly, catching is one thing, passing is another around this Jerez circuit. And here we are with Carlos Sainz Jr. He's dropped back from Norman Nato there.
That's his teammate who got by him in the second corner on lap 1, and he's just dropping a fraction away every lap. And I do think probably that the steering's deranged, or his toe has gone after that double contact that he had with Oscar Tunio. The side-on one in the second corner, that would have been the one that has put things a little bit out of line. But
plus he's unwell. This is a physical circuit, and the temperatures are high here. Food poisoning is unpleasant at the best of times, not only when you've got to get up early, do a qualifying session, be at a busy circuit, and then drive in the afternoon sunshine.
Yeah. Luckily, you can sit in a air-conditioned booth with your food poisoning, so that's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You know how he feels. At least you did before the cars left the grid. Ollie Rowland now right in the wheel tracks of Will Stevens, and this is where Rowland is going to just have to be belligerently persistent, really push until he's got no tyres left. He's just going to have to risk the fact that Sergei Sorokin might get by him in the closing stages, because now if he wants to win this, no half measures, he's got to attack Stevens at every turn.
Oh, and he will do just that. Ollie Rowland's absolutely brilliant. He's a real character in the motorsport paddocks, and he only has 2 speeds, flat out and stop. I say that about a few drivers, but Ollie Rowland kind of epitomises that phrase, doesn't he? He's very tigerish, and when he gets a sniff of silverware, he will not give up. He will absolutely leave nothing to chance, and will fight tooth and nail till the checkered flag. And Will Stevens will know that. The drivers know and understand all the characteristics about each other, just like other sportsmen and women analyse the competition. And Will Stevens will see in his rearview mirrors this Racing Steps Foundation Fortec machine, and know he's got a fight on, because this Fortec car coming on very strongly now in the closing stages of this race. We are 15 minutes left, 40 minutes plus 1 lap, the distance, and you can just visibly see now Ollie Rowland just being able to carry more speed through the corners. And if he can get close enough, boy oh boy, we're going to have a battle for the lead.
He's taken 2/10 out of Will Stevens the last lap as well as the previous one. It is now battle very firmly joined, and Sergei Sorokin, quicker than either of these guys, is closing in from behind as well. So you're right about the relative performance of the Fortec car getting stronger in this phase of the race, because Rowland and Sorokin both running faster in their Fortec machines than Will Stevens' Stracker car. There is the Fortec garage, and they'll be watching with great interest. They might end up with a 1-2 here. And of course, in the Teams Championship, Fortec second, chasing Dams. The Dams cars are 8th and 9th with Norman Nato and Carlos Sainz, and neither showing any likelihood of getting by anybody. So this could really help Fortec go into the final day with a chance of winning the Teams title.
And this is unfamiliar territory for Stracker Racing and Will Stevens in 2014. I'm not doing them a disservice. They will admit that themselves. It's been a challenging year. They came into this year as one of the title favourites, and with the modifications around the Michelin tyre, they just weren't able to get the tyre to work in qualifying. And when you start in the wrong place, it's very difficult to challenge for the overall silverware. Will Stevens now said to me after qualifying they made a whole heap of changes. They continued to try, learn, fight, do what they could, and they've come to Jerez with another idea. It's worked, so Will Stevens is back up to where he should be, but nevertheless it's a new experience of 2014. It'll be interesting to see how much pace they have in the latter stages compared to Fortec, who are used to being right up there come the checkered flag in 2014. Ollie Rowland actually, you know, I think he's had a better year than the results show. He's had a bit of bad luck in qualifying here and there. Then he's had some mechanical gremlins. It just hasn't worked out for the Brit, who's shown strongly in his rookie campaign.
Well, he's had 5 podium finishes, including the win. He's not been second before, though. He's had 4 third places and a win. Will Stevens has had 3 podiums. He's had a first, a second and a third. And looking back again, still this battle. Beitske in 5th place, Pierre Gasly in 6th. Well, she was really buoyed up yesterday, Beitske, after free practice session when she was 11th quickest, and a gremlin with the car stopped her getting a lap that was on for being inside the top 10. She qualified in 12th place, made a very good fist at the start, avoided all the damage, and is still in 5th place. Definitely on target for her big result of the season so far.
The AstroTurf looking a little bit worse for wear.
Very second-hand there at turn 10, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's got a... What I like about this Jerez circuit is all the corners with fairly nostalgic names. I won't dare try and pronounce half of them. But I'll leave that to you, Martin. But it does have that heritage. You talked about MotoGP. This was a real Formula One circuit for many a year. And that's why Alan Prost, who we heard from in the pre-show, knew it so well when he drove the car again this weekend, that Renault prototype that'll be brought out to replace the Megane series in 2015.
And it's not a Hermann Tilke track either, designed by a Spanish architect, and it really flows around the land here. You know, you can see that we're in these hilly valleys, which are the sherry producing region just north of the seaport of Cadiz, just outside of Jerez, the city which gives its name to the wine. In the pit lane is Oscar Tuño, and that might be a legacy of that turn 2 clash on lap 1 with Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, so they've plugged the computer in it. Maybe a mechanical gremlin. They got plenty of, let's say, important elements in the side pods of these cars. Coolant, oil, and water coolant in there. And if the engine's running a bit hot because of damage, then they'll look to retire that, because there's still the race tomorrow where they qualify and race again, and you don't want to do untold damage when you're down in 17th.
Frankly, at the moment, it might be running a little hot because it's got a bit of AstroTurf in the side pod as well, because we've seen some bits flapping around and being dropped by cars in the turn 12 chicane, turn 11 chicane, the centre chicane. Down into the braking area once more. Pierre Gasly closes in on Bikes-Gewisse out of the final corner, named after world champion Jorge Lorenzo. But he cannot get close enough. And behind him now, see, he's had this pressure relief valve all the way through the race until the final 10 minutes now, where he's had nobody close enough behind him to be a nuisance. So he can have a lunge. If it doesn't work, fine. He regathers his thoughts, but nobody's coming up the inside. Now that's not quite the case. Will Stevens, though, has shaken off Ollie Rowland. Ollie Rowland was 0.4 of a second behind 2 laps ago, and it looks like that has taken the edge off his tyres, because he's now down to 1.4 back, and Sergei Sorokin a second behind Rowland as well. So maybe Ollie Rowland's challenge for the win has just been blunted by sitting in the slipstream of Will Stevens for that half dozen laps.
Now, Will Stevens' girlfriend there, Millie Sears, in the middle. She's grown up around motorsport, hasn't she? Her father, David Sears, and Supernova, with a motorsport-rich pedigree.
And of course her granddad, gentleman Jack Sears, first British saloon car champion and long-time racer, and still absolutely fascinating man to talk to. So yeah, granddad and dad in the motor racing business. Hardly surprising that she's glued to the screen here as well.
And now boyfriend.
Yeah.
So Will Stevens will have a big smile on his face. What impressed me, and I said this to Will earlier, is he was still in the mindset after having such a challenging year to make the most of his car when it was good enough for pole position. And that might sound a bit strange, but it's easy to be down in the doldrums and just a little bit away from your ultimate best, and then when you do have an opportunity, you don't quite maximize it. And Will Stevens has done just that with pole position and now leading the race. He's really impressed me with his mindset there, because could have easily been a negative for Will finishing the season, a season that's been, like I said, a little bit disappointing for him. And he's worked hard and it's paid off now. He actually said to me, I'm just so frustrated we didn't find this pace earlier on in the year. And that just shows how hungry he is still.
Well, when you find it occasionally, that's more frustrating than having a car that's a dog the whole time, isn't it? Because you know the potential is there, and it reminds you that you haven't forgotten how to drive. It reminds the engineers that they do remember how to set a car up. But the window, you know, when everybody else has got exactly the same car, the window for getting it right or for getting it better, let's say, is very narrow. And the field, as you said, is so tight. You know, 18 cars within a second in qualifying means that if you're a nip off, then you are off, and that's all that it takes. So having that car under him, you're right, you've got to be really, really on it again. Now, the last time we saw Norman Nato from Carlos Sainz's camera, we had the full length of the back straight between 5 and 6 between us. Now it's only a couple of car lengths, and Nato dropped a second to Sainz on the previous lap. I think he had a little bit of an off, or got himself a bit deep into one of the corners under braking and somehow squirreled round, but that's allowed Sainz to close the gap right up. I don't think Sainz has got any extra pace, but Nato came back to him. I'm not sure he's going to get a chance to pick up a place here, though. However, when he steps out of the car, Sainz will be our champion. Battle between Roman Mavlanov in the Zeta Course car and Zol Amberg behind him in the second of the AVF cars.
So Mavlanov back. He missed the Paul Ricard weekend, didn't he? Because of his GT duties. I'm pretty sure that was the case.
So he is back in the car. And Roberto Meri, unfortunately, probably already in civvies in the garage.
So the cameraman just had a fright, thought he'd missed something there, didn't he?
Whipping back, trying to follow the battle. Well, still the fastest race lap from Pietro Fantin, a 1:31.9. I'm saying that seems unlikely, given that the race leader's fastest lap is a 32.3, and the next faster, we've seen a 32.2 from Ollie Rowland. I'm saying a 31.9 from Pietro Fantin. It's unlikely, not impossible.
Well, it's a very good lap either way, if that is the case. He did it all by himself because he started from the pit lane and was in
Where
clean air.
Did he find the shortcut? Did he go all the way around the Crivier turn instead of through the centre chicane? He can't have done because there are bollards in the way, but that would certainly be a quicker way round because you don't have to brake. Monster lockup in front of Mavlanov from Matthias Lane in the second Straka car. Has he vanished?
No, I think...
That's it. Is that not him behind? No, that's Jota in the Jacko car. Yeah. Huge cloud of smoke in front. Must have been generated by Matthias Lane. There's the Tech 1 car of Sorensen.
So Lane
has either got by Sorensen because and the lockup was from the Tech 1 car, or he's gone off. So we'll have to wait till they get to the end of the lap because we're not seeing it. Ollie Rowland still chasing, and he's brought the gap back down again within a second. We're down to, well, it was 7/10 last lap. It's not half a second now, is it? There's your leader, Will Stevens. So Rowland having a breather, having a think, metaphorically scratching his head. Now let's have another go. 4 minutes plus a lap, so that's 3 laps from here in, you think?
Yeah, Will Stevens definitely not with the pace of Ollie Rowland at this stage. But that said, I think Will is managing this to a certain extent. He certainly will not be panicking underneath that helmet yet. Because as I said earlier, catching's one thing, passing's another. Will Stevens has been in this situation many a time before, so as I said, he won't be panicking, and boy oh boy will he want his second win of the year, so expect him to fight as well as Rowland. It could be a really tigerish affair between the two Brits.
Meanwhile, Bijtskevissa in the orange and white car. Orange, Dayglow red, kind of somewhere in there anyway. Ahead of the dark blue car, Pierre Gasly.
It's almost like the Ferrari in the early 2000s.
Yeah, like it used to be when they had Dayglow Marlboro colours. Exactly right, but it's a little orangier than that. Fortek second and third with Ollie Rowland and Sergei Sorokin is right there as well as Rowland runs very wide over what's left of that AstroTurf down at turn 10, and there's another bit again. You know, that's what I was referring to when we saw Tunio retiring. If it's overheated, it might just be that one of the side pods has got blocked, the airflow blocked by a bit of AstroTurf.
It's dangerous as well for the drivers. I don't like seeing that. If that hits Sorokin on the helmet, that's a heavy bit of carpet, shall we say, and if it goes into the side pod or the air intake, it's race over as well. So I don't like seeing bits of AstroTurf flailing up.
Well, I think we've seen so many times over the years that it really doesn't work, and it's sort of a bit ridiculous that people are still using them, like those stupid big concrete sausage curbs. There's got to be a better way than AstroTurf. There's got to be a better way than concrete curbs, definitely. We saw Millie Sears again with everything crossed. If Will Stevens is feeling cool, calm and collected, there's not much breathing going on in the Straka garage right now. They're all desperately hoping that everything is going to work to plan inside the final 2 minutes. So when we cross the line, are we going to have one more lap? Yeah, we will. They'll get one more lap, won't they? Their time won't have run out by the time they get there.
Definitely not.
So 2 more after this. So Will Stevens has to hang on. Ollie Rowland still half a second behind.
But you don't need to hang on, really. You just need to not make a mistake, because if Will Stevens doesn't make a mistake, Ollie Rowland, there's just no way that you can actually get close enough to make a move. We've seen how difficult Gasly's found it passing Bijtskevissa, and you know, this is for the race lead as well, so it'll be tightly contested. And if Will Stevens just doesn't make a mistake, I can't see Rowland passing him, if I'm honest.
Sorokin ran in a bit deep there, didn't he? Just as well Rowland was turning out of the way, because Sergei Sorokin ran very deep into the final corner. Maybe he was just intending to triangulate it a bit and drill the throttle onto the front straight. Front straight's not, down to turn 1, not really the best passing opportunity. That's on the back straight between 5 and 6. Going into corner 3 here, the first left on the track. And this is a long double sort of left-hander, 3 into 4. Then up to turn 5, named after Cito Pons, dropping down and then starting to climb over the brow on the exit onto the straight down to turn 6.
That's a mega corner, very difficult to follow the car in front. And Sorokin actually's got a run on Roland. Has he got any DRS left? And almost
there's the
enough.
other factor, but he was close enough there almost to tangle wheels through the left-hander at 7. Richard Dutton going, do not do that to me. Dutton, fortunately, has already got white hair, so it won't show. Through corner 8, named after Jorge Martinez, Jorge Aspar, and Pierre Nieto, remembered in turn 9. And then if you go the long way around the outside, the corner for bike races named after Alex Crivier. On the inside, the car chicane named after Ayrton Senna.
So there'll be 1 lap left now. The clock has ticked down.
This could all yet still turn to tears. I hope not, because all 3 of these guys have driven a good solid race. Will Stevens leads on to the final lap. Ollie Rowland in 2nd place. Sergei Sorokin in 3rd. And if Sorokin has a lunge and collects Rowland, he'd better head for Cadiz and keep walking. I don't think he'll be welcome back in the Fortec garage, because for the team, this could be very big. They could be moving an awful lot closer to Dams. I'd like to tell you how much closer, but I can't talk and count at the same time. I can barely count without talking.
Yeah, my maths isn't great, so I'll leave that to you after the race, Martin.
No, we'll wait for the graphic to come up, then it'll be right. Mathieu Passivière is in 4th in the Lotus, 10 seconds behind this battle, 12 in front of the squabble for 5th. And Bikes Gavissa still looking for her best result of the season. Ollie Rowland showing very strongly into corner 6.
Well, Stevens used up all his DRS there, so Rowland had DRS to burn and got as close as he's been to Will Stevens. Will just making sure that he positioned his car in the middle of the track on entry, just to say no chance, Ollie Rowland. And this is as close as the battle has been, but as I said, the braking zone's just not big enough around this element, and Stevens is almost off.
That's always the worry with the AstroTurf, is you get way out there and there's no grip at all, but he's out of the chicane. 2 corners remain. This is going to have to be a monster last lap lunge into the final hairpin.
Stevens will defend.
He'll have to go deep. Rowland around the outside. Surely he can't win the drag race from there, but he's giving it his very best shot. They're going to be inches apart at the line. Epic finish here in Jerez. 1, 2, 3 covered by the proverbial pocket handkerchief. Rowland lunges to the line, and Millie Sears, language Timothy, the margin of victory, 78 thousandths of a second. Mathieu Passivière is 4th. Bikes Gavissa will surely be... Hang on a minute. That's... Oh no, that's Sainz behind Nato. I thought that was Sainz behind Gasly for a moment there in that shot. Bikes Gavissa 5th, Gasly 6th, Minded Van Buren 7th. That might be his best result this season as well for Cito Pons. 8th and 9th for Dams, which gives them 6 points.
Victory weave for Carlos Sainz Jr. because he is your champion.
Dams have scored 6 points against 30 for Fortec, so Fortec closed by 24, which gives them 260. I think they need a 1-2 tomorrow, with Dams not scoring at all. I think Dams will end up with the team's championship, but there are the 2 Dams drivers. Carrying car number 1 into the season was a good luck omen for Carlos Sainz, but he had his share of fortune. He certainly showed up when it counted, winning 7 races so far, and he is our 2014 World Series by Renault Formula Renault 3.5 champion. And there is Jean-Paul Driot. 1 more race, I believe, they will need to clinch the team's championship from Fortec. But it has been a well-run campaign again. Last year they ran Kevin Magnussen to the title and won the team's crown. And this year, I think they are looking at another double championship win. But our race winner, Will Stevens for Straka here in Jerez.
At the heart of the World Series by Renault, with Elf.
In a throng of media and well-wishers, our champion Carlos Sainz being greeted by the Spanish media. Will Stevens, our race winner, from Ollie Rowland and Sergei Sorokin. Mathieu Vazivière, a lonely fourth. Bijtske an under pressure fifth ahead of Pierre Gasly. And Carlos Sainz, in the end, finishing in ninth place. But with his only championship rival, Roberto Merhi, out of the way, he's the champion.
Well, congratulations. That second win of the year took a long time coming, but that was an impressive way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we knew the pace would be strong. On Friday we didn't get much for race one, so we were a bit looking into the race to see what would happen. Obviously we knew rear tyres would be the issue here, and I kept trying to push and then back off and judge the pace, which I think we did pretty well with. For the last 2 or 3 laps we just lost the rears, but I mean, overall it's a great result for the team. We've worked hard and hopefully we can continue into tomorrow.
Towards the end, a nice battle with Oliver, but you just managed to defend.
Yeah, I knew he was always strong coming out the last corner, so I knew if he was going to overtake me anywhere, I'd be there. But I didn't make hardly any mistakes during the race, and I knew if I didn't, then I could hold on. So overall, I'm happy.
Well done, thank you.
Well done indeed. Hot work. Sweaty looking Will Stevens, and sealed the deal at the start. He and Ollie Rowland both got away superbly. Will Buller third on the grid. The red and white Arden car did not, and then inexplicably moved over hard to his left to defend against a threat that wasn't there. Caught the only championship rival to Carlos Sainz, Roberto Merhi, on the outside. Merhi had made the start he needed to try and keep the championship alive, and Buller speared him off and into the gravel. That will be under investigation by the stewards, as will Sainz's first lap move, which caused Oscar Junior to drop to the back of the field. Puncture there for Marlon Stockinger, who was collected as well by Will Buller. It was Stockinger's Lotus that Buller was trying to defend against. Merhi stalked off out of the race. Carlos Sainz, off form with food poisoning, managed to get himself up behind his teammate as he dived to the inside, but ninth was as high as he got. Battle raged throughout the race from start to finish between Bijtske and the Red Bull car of Pierre Gasly. He could not get by, nor could Ollie Rowland close the gap several times to within a couple of car lengths on Will Stevens. No matter how hard he tried, it just was not coming. Sainz caught up to teammate Norman Nato in the end. The Dams guys running 8th and 9th as the Astro Turf disappeared under their wheels. And that corner 10 might have been the place that undid Will Stevens. Ran out wide there on the final lap. Ollie Rowland had a drag race all the way up the straight to the line. It's a long way to the line here. The margin of victory for Stevens over Rowland, 78 thousandths of a second. And Will Stevens' mum and dad and girlfriend there breathing finally after several laps of waiting. But with one race to go, Dams and Carlos Sainz have won the driver's crown in Formula Renault 3.5. The team's championship has yet, I think, to be officially confirmed. And there's now 3 points. Roberto Merhi in front of Pierre Gasly for second spot in the championship. And what's more, Will Stevens has launched himself back ahead of Sergei Sorokin. No, he hasn't quite, but closing up a little bit from behind. Dams with a what's that, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 39-point lead. So there is our champion. Dams likely to be team's champions tomorrow as well. Well, Neil Cole down there with Carlos Sainz Jr. And El Matador, Carlos Sainz, the World Rally Champion, is there, but out of shot.